Caracas, September 23, 2025, 2:47 a.m. Alejandro's fingers froze on the keyboard. The encrypted message on the screen was measuring the last 5 minutes of his life, perhaps even his last 5 seconds. Transfer complete. Ships have departed. God protect us. The siren sound from the window was getting closer. The FBI's Shadow Operation Unit in Caracas had finally found him. Alejandro Rodriguez was once the brightest analyst in Venezuela's intelligence service. Now he was wanted as a traitor who sold out his country to Washington. Or at least that's how the Caracas administration saw it. He thought of himself as just an officer trying to expose the truth. He threw the laptop into his bag. When he opened the hidden panel in the wall, the narrow passage behind it would lead him to the roof of the neighboring building. But first, he had to do one more thing. He opened his phone. The last message from the encrypted line was from his American liaison officer, Marcus Chen. Patel spoke to the Senate. Graham is pushing. Terror list could come. Get out now. A bitter smile appeared on Alejandro's lips. A regime that had spent decades blocking CIA and DEA activities in the region, providing protection to cartel leaders, poisoning its own people with drug trafficking. Could it finally be held accountable? But the answer wasn't that simple. The sounds from the street intensified. Boots, radio communications. 7 agents, Venezuela's fearsome intelligence organization, had surrounded the building. Alejandro passed behind the panel. As he climbed up the dark stairs, his mind went back 3 weeks. Washington, D.C., September 5, 2025, FBI headquarters. Kash Patel had spent his first 6 months as FBI director in turbulent times. The Trump administration's harsh stance had demolished the diplomatic approaches of previous administrations. Patel, as a former federal prosecutor, was determined to turn a new page in the fight against cartels. The screen in the conference room showed satellite images of the Caribbean. Boats departing from Venezuelan shores were part of a network extending through Central America to the U.S. border. Venezuela is no longer just a transit point, said Chief of Operations Sarah Mendez. The Maduro regime is providing full state support to cartels. They're using their ports, using their military as protection, even their airspace. Patel looked at the screen. Is the evidence concrete? Director, more than concrete. Mendez opened another file. Recordings of cartel leaders meeting with Venezuelan generals, documents showing cocaine shipments being made from military facilities, and most importantly, a man's photo appeared on the screen. Alejandro Rodriguez served in Venezuelan intelligence for 12 years. He made contact with us 2 months ago. He's got bombs. Patel leaned forward. Is he reliable? Every piece of information he has given so far has been accurate. We've used him in 4 operations, seized 23 tons of cocaine, arrested 14 cartel members. The guy is playing from the inside, but he knows the risk. If he's caught, execution, said Patel. Military courts are still active in Venezuela. Mendez nodded. Exactly. That's why he's in a hurry. He says Maduro is about to make a big move. New routes will be opened to Mexican cartels, but he wants to share details face to face. Patel looked out the window. Sending a team to Venezuela for a source? Risky. We already have a team there, Shadow Operation, officially a trade attaché. Rodriguez will meet with them. When? 2 weeks from now. But first, we need to do something. Mendez pointed to the calendar on the screen. On September 17th, you'll testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee. Graham and his team will push to put Venezuela on the terror list. Patel took a deep breath. The state sponsor of terrorism list, a label that opened the door to sanctions, isolation, and potential military intervention. If we put them on the list, our inside sources like Rodriguez will be endangered. Maduro will go into full paranoia mode. But if we don't, Mendez continued, we give the cartels unlimited space. We can't stop the drugs flowing into the U.S. The silence between them was heavy. Caracas, September 17, 2025. Same day, 6 hours before Senate hearing. Alejandro watched the street from the safe house window. Marcus Chen was the CIA's most experienced agent in the region, someone who had served in dozens of operations from Taipei to Tehran. "They're going to speak today," said Chen, looking at the news on his phone. "Patel will testify before the Senate." "What will he say?" Alejandro's voice was tense. "I don't know, but Graham wants the terror list. If Patel supports it, Maduro will go crazy." Alejandro turned to Chen. "You know, right? If we get on that list, the regime will start a full purge. Everyone will be under suspicion, including me." Chen looked thoughtful. "We can get you out, tomorrow night, with a diplomatic vehicle." "No," Alejandro shook his head. "It's not over yet. I still have information I haven't shared. The big shipment." "The big shipment isn't worth the risk," Chen said in a harsh tone. "Your life is more important." Alejandro pressed his lips together. "My life? What about the lives of kids on the street? While this poison is being sold on U.S. streets, Washington politicians are drowning in terror list debates. The real issue is lost." "The issue hasn't changed, but the method has. The Trump administration isn't playing like Obama or Biden. They're going hard. Don't get caught in the middle." Alejandro looked out the window. A Seaban vehicle was slowly passing on the street. "Too late," he whispered. Washington, D.C., September 17, 2025. Senate Intelligence Committee. The hearing room was packed. Cameras, journalists, senators, everyone was waiting for this moment. Senator Lindsey Graham leaned into the microphone. His expression was determined. "Director Patel, what do you think of Venezuela's role in drug trafficking?" Patel went through the prepared answers in his mind. Every word mattered. Every sentence could create a diplomatic earthquake. "Senator, the Maduro regime in Venezuela is in systematic collaboration with organized crime groups. They support Mexican cartels using their ports, airspace, and even military infrastructure." "So does this make them a state sponsor of terrorism?" Graham's voice was sharp. Patel paused for a moment. He remembered the intelligence report he received that morning. Alejandro Rodriguez was under surveillance. Seaban was watching him. If the terror list announcement came, Alejandro's life would be in danger. But at the same time, being on this list would provide new tools against the Maduro regime, sanctions, financial pressures, perhaps even regime change. "Senator," Patel said, carefully choosing his words, "the state sponsor of terrorism list is not just a legal label, it's a strategic decision. If we take this step, we must be prepared for the consequences. Diplomatic channels close. Our allies inside." "Allies?" Graham interrupted. "Do we have allies in Venezuela, or just bureaucrats selling information to cartel leaders?" The room tensed. Patel didn't raise his voice. "Senator, I cannot share details of our intelligence sources in an open session, but what I can tell you is this. We need help from inside to corner the Maduro regime. If the terror list decision is made, these sources go silent." Graham leaned back. "Or maybe that's exactly what Maduro should fear. Maybe it's time for Washington to stop playing games and take real action." Before Patel could respond, he felt a vibration on his phone. Urgent message. "Rodriguez detected. Seaban has moved. Situation red." Patel's face didn't change, but his mind was troubled. "Senator Graham," he said in a calm but determined voice, "we will hunt down every single one of those narco-traffickers. But this isn't just about catching individuals, it's about collapsing systems, and the system extends to the highest levels of the Maduro government." Graham leaned forward. "So should they be put on the terror list?" Patel hesitated. This moment was the turning point of his career. "The decision is your president's," Patel said, diplomatically but ambiguously. "But as the FBI, we are ready to use every tool at our disposal." Graham wasn't looking satisfied, but the question was answered, or at least it appeared so. Caracas, same night, 2:47 a.m.
When Alejandro reached the roof, the sounds behind him were rising. Alto! Stop! Sabine agents had entered the building. Alejandro jumped from the rooftop and crossed to the neighboring building. His knees hurt, but he had no luxury to stop. His phone in his pocket vibrated. Message from Chen. Vehicle at North Corner, 3 minutes. But 3 minutes was too long. Alejandro quickly descended the stairs. When he exited to the street, he emerged onto a dark avenue. A black SUV was parked in the distance. He started running, but just then a door behind him opened and 2 agents burst out. "Rodriguez, surrender!" Alejandro increased his speed. The SUV was only 50 meters away. Suddenly, a gunshot from behind. The bullet passed by Alejandro and hit the wall. He wasn't running anymore. He was fighting to survive. The SUV's front window opened. Marcus Chen was at the wheel. "Jump!" With one last effort, Alejandro threw himself into the back seat of the car. Chen floored the gas pedal. 2 Sabine vehicles emerged behind them. The chase had begun. "How did they find us?" Alejandro shouted. "Senate hearing," said Chen, maneuvering through narrow streets. Patel spoke. "Maduro put all intelligence units on alert. They're trying to finish us along with you." Alejandro leaned his head back. What did Patel say? Enough. A Sabine vehicle pulled up beside them. An agent leaning out of the window fired. Bullets shattered the SUV's rear window. Chen made a sharp turn. "Hold on." The vehicle entered a narrow alley, then a side road, then another avenue. Sabine vehicles were behind them, but the distance was widening. "Port," said Chen. "We'll get on a boat from there. We'll cross to Colombia." "Colombia?" Alejandro was out of breath. "That's not safe either." "There's no safe place," Chen said realistically. "But at least from there, we can get you to the U.S." 1 week later, in Miami, FBI Regional Office. Alejandro Rodriguez was now on U.S. soil, but he wasn't free. He was in witness protection. In the FBI's interrogation room, Kash Patel sat across from him. "If what you're saying is true," Patel said, looking at the files on the table, "Venezuela isn't just a passive transit point. It's an active partner." "Yes," Alejandro said. "Maduro's closest generals are taking direct cuts from the cartels. Ships depart from Venezuelan ports. Cocaine is protected by the Venezuelan army. In fact," Alejandro paused. "Go on," Patel asked. "In fact, some shipments are made with Venezuelan diplomatic vehicles. There's immunity. No one can check." Patel put his pen down on the table. "This is grounds for war." "Or grounds for being put on the terror list," Alejandro said quietly. Patel looked at Alejandro. "What do you want? Maduro's fall?" Alejandro took a deep breath. "I want my country to be saved. But bringing down Maduro isn't easy. If the U.S. intervenes, the region descends into chaos. Russia and China get involved. Venezuela becomes a second Syria." "So what do you suggest?" "Targeted operations," Alejandro said. "Hit the cartel leaders. Isolate Venezuelan generals. Cut off financial flows, but don't force the regime into open war." Patel was thoughtful. "The Trump administration isn't that patient. Graham and his team want the terror list. The president supports it too." "If you put them on the list," Alejandro said, "Maduro feels cornered. Then you know what he does. He moves closer to Russia and China, maybe even Iran, and his relations with cartels go underground, becomes more invisible." Patel understood Alejandro's logic, but political pressure was different. "I'll need to explain this to senators and the White House, but I can't guarantee anything." Alejandro nodded. "No one can guarantee anything."
Washington, D.C., October 1st, 2025. White House. The meeting in the Oval Office had grown tense. President Trump sat at his desk, listening to his team. Kash Patel was presenting the Venezuela file. "Mr. President," Patel said, "there are benefits to putting them on the terror list, but the risks are also great. We lose our inside sources, diplomatic channels close, the region destabilizes." "But if we don't," said the National Security Advisor, "Maduro relaxes. He gives full support to cartels. Drugs flowing into U.S. streets increase." Trump looked out the window. "What happens if we list Venezuela?" he asked. "Sanctions increase. Financial isolation deepens. We can give more support to opposition, but Russia and China get involved," the Deputy Secretary of State interjected. "Maduro becomes more dependent on them. Military presence increases. Maybe even Russian bases open in the Caribbean." Trump thought silently. "Patel," the president said, "as the FBI, what do you recommend?" Patel looked directly at the president. "Mr. President, I'm an enforcer. You make political decisions, but I can tell you this. We shouldn't rush to bring down Maduro, but we should use every tool to damage him. The terror list should be the last step. First, targeted sanctions, seizing generals' assets, operations to capture cartel leaders." Trump nodded. "All right, we're suspending the terror list, but I want concrete results within 6 months. If you can't bring Maduro to heel, he goes on the list." Patel stood up. "Understood, Mr. President." Miami, October 15, 2025, midnight. Alejandro sat in the safe house watching the news on television. The White House today decided not to place Venezuela on the state sponsor of terrorism list. Instead, pressure will be applied to the Maduro regime through targeted sanctions and operations. Alejandro exhaled uneasily. His phone rang. It was Kash Patel. "Did you see?" Patel asked. "Yes." "We have 6 months. After that, this decision could change. Your information is critically important." Alejandro listened silently. "What do you want from me?" "Cooperation," said Patel. "We need to unravel the Venezuelan connections inside the cartels. Identify every general, every collaborator. By capturing them, we'll isolate Maduro." Alejandro closed his eyes. "This won't end," he said quietly. "If you catch one general, another comes. If you collapse one cartel, another grows." "Maybe," said Patel, "but we at least have to try." Alejandro looked away from the phone, through the dark window, out at Miami's lights. Once he was in Caracas, now he was in exile, but the war wasn't over. "Okay," said Alejandro, "we continue." Ending. Caracas, October 20th, 2025. General Luis Vasquez sat in his office talking on the phone with a cartel leader. "America pulled back the terror list, but we must be careful. They haven't given up. They'll conduct targeted operations." The cartel leader laughed on the other end of the phone. "Whatever they do, we win because we have the greatest weapon." "What is it?" the general asked. "Time," the cartel leader said. "Politicians forget after 6 months. Elections come, priorities change. But us, we're always here." The general looked out the window at the city. The streets were dark. The economy had collapsed. The people were hungry. But above, in the palaces, in luxury villas, generals and cartel leaders were wealthy. And the war continued. Because this story wasn't just about one country. This was the story of a system. And systems didn't change easily.